Have a guest today, Julia Patton, who will let go first before we continue on to some other topics that have come up in the last week. So with that, I'll have Superintendent Arntzen give a quick update and then turn it over to Ken and Julia.
Thank you. Good morning for everyone coming and being part of this today. We're excited to share some other things that are part of this agenda. But at this, let's just not delay. Julia, we're welcome that you're here. I know you have partaken a little bit of our education advocate discussion before, but welcome, and we're glad that you're here this Tuesday.
Hi. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I actually have Sam Schaefer here, who is our lead revenue analyst, to give an update on the state revenue outlook. And our director, Amy Carlson, is also signed into the call as well. So Sam, do you want to give an update on the revenue?
Yeah, that works for me. Unless Amy wants to jump in, I can just sort of do it'll be, an abbreviated version to what we gave to, the finance committee, but I will run through really quickly the revenue updates, and I'm going to do a quick screen share. And all right, can everyone see this?
Yes, thanks, Sam.
Cool. So right now, and I will let you know that this is probably going to change month to month. We pretty much forecast a lot of our sources, most of them using data from an economic firm called IHS Markit. And month to month, since the pandemic started, we've seen their forecast change dramatically from month to month. So who knows what's going to happen come November when we ultimately prepare an estimate for the legislature to adopt. But this is our forecast right now, and perhaps subject to change. As you can see here, the yellow line is, our historical general fund revenue collections in fiscal 17 through 19. The green is what was adopted last session, and then the blue is what we're forecasting right now. So as you can see, we show a substantial drop of 12.8% in fiscal year 2021, and then we have a forecast that rebounds by the next biennium in fiscal 22 and 23. It comes out to be a 15.1% drop over the 2-year period. And as you know, we're an income tax state, and a lot of this is driven by individual income tax, which you can see here is forecast to drop by 16.6% in fiscal year 2021 and then rebounding. The reason for the drop, without getting into too much detail, is what we believe to be taxpayers will maximize cash right now. So as opposed to having a tendency to put refunds towards future tax liability, we think that they will more often than not opt to take those refunds, which would increase refunds to the state, which therefore, decreases revenues. We also think that earlier in April and now in June, a lot of the small businesses who aren't corporations, but instead make individual income tax payments, probably made their payments based on what they earned last year before they get a handle on this. It's likely that they overpaid, and we think then it will really show up in the fall. So the estimated payments that they begin paying in FY21, which starts tomorrow, could be reduced substantially compared to what we've seen in past years, because they likely overpaid in the first half of this calendar year. And then the CARES Act had some provisions that allowed businesses to move losses backwards and in larger amounts than what was currently legal, as a way for businesses to get as much cash on hand as possible. And in addition to that, retirement accounts on a year-to-year basis require that once you're a certain age, you have to have a minimum withdrawal from those accounts. And when you withdraw money from a retirement account, you then pay tax on it. the feds, as part of the CARES Act, said in calendar year 2020, you're not required to make those withdrawals. So all of these things combined with, reductions in state personal income once the stimulus runs out, and reductions in other economic indicators from IHS is what's driving this sort of big V-shape decrease and then increase when these one-time taxpayer events and once the CARES package provisions expires, brings the increase then in fiscal year 2022. So really quick, income tax makes up about 60% of our general fund. We're showing a big drop there. That's leading to a big drop in the overall forecast. And just scrolling through this quick without really talking about these sources, these are the other sources that we kind of expect to see a decrease due to the current, economic climate we're in. Corporate income tax is expected to decrease. No surprise there. Oil and natural gas, old forecast, new forecast. No surprise that the price of oil is lower than what was forecasted back in the last session. It was hovering right around 60 a barrel. Now we're at 40, and it's expected to gradually go up, but not necessarily back up to the pre-pandemic levels. And with no rigs operating in the state, we expect a decrease in production as well. So even if the price does rebound a lot, unless new production comes online, we won't quite get back up to where we were prior to this year. Accommodations tax, this is those lodging taxes. A hotel, Montana's general fund gets 3% of the lodging revenue. As less people travel, we're going to collect less in accommodations. Note this is forecasted using an IHS indicator, which is national consumer spending on lodging. We don't actually have a Montana specific one. So it's possible that maybe this won't be quite as deep a trough as you see here, but we definitely expect it to decline and then slowly rebound. We expect similarly rental cars to decline, and I'll get to that in a second. Video gaming, this is a product of those establishments being closed or at limited capacity. We expect it to drop in the current fiscal year and then slowly rebound by fiscal 2022, hopefully as things may reopen to pre-pandemic levels. Rental cars, same story as accommodations, less people traveling, less people renting cars. The Treasury cash account, we included this one because, it's one that's going to see a pretty large drop in the current year and likely moving forward into the next biennium. When the state has cash on hand, as throughout the years, cash flow goes up and maybe we don't have many expenditures until we send the school payments out. When cash is sitting there in the bank, it does earn short-term interest. That interest does go to the general fund. Recall last year, short-term interest rates got up to about 2.5%. Now they're essentially zero. That coupled with the possibility of having less cash on hand in the next biennium is explaining the drop we're going to see here. And then this topic comes up quite a bit, so I included it. I don't know how much of this will be impacted by the current pandemic. Perhaps some down the road is, if more people are working remotely, there won't be quite the demand for commercial office electricity. But this drop that you're seeing here is I'm trying to illustrate the result of the closures of units 1 and 2. When 1 and 2 shut down, the coal that formerly burned and ran those plants is now expected to not have a buyer. And from looking at the data since coal strip units 1 and 2 closed, the production from the Rosebud mine has went down by about 20% as expected. So that is the, very, very quick, abbreviated revenue update. This document is posted on our website, and it explains, in more detail if you want to read what we're seeing by each source. You can also see the chart that has all the general fund sources listed with HJ2 for 2021, as well as our new forecast for the next biennium. But this is the picture that the LFD is forecasting right now. And like I said, it may be different come November. It may be slightly different. We just have to wait and see. This is all new to everyone right now. So it's sort of, one day, 1 month at a time. So that's what I have. If anyone has questions, feel free to ask them. And if Amy wants to chime in on anything, she's online as well. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Sam, Amy, and Julia. We appreciate this overview. Are there any questions?
Well, I have one. Sam, since you're the expert, and thank you very much for that very quick and careful overview. A guarantee account. Do you have anything discussing our school trust lands? We were like 46 million last year. What are we projected at this point?
Since that's a non-general fund source, we wouldn't have updated that specific one, but later in the day, I can take a look and kind of see what I'm seeing. Yeah, this was the general fund update. So unless there was a source that, like oil goes to multiple state special funds as well as the local and general fund. So we would have had an update for those sources, but for the general, the guarantee fund right now, I haven't updated that forecast, but we can chat later in the day.
Thank you for that, Sam. And then the second one that I have has to deal with the governor's office compared to fiscal division. It's my understanding we're pretty close to the estimate.
Yeah, Superintendent Artson, I haven't seen their numbers, but from listening to Director Livers when he testified in front of the Finance Committee, he told them that their numbers are within the same ballpark as ours as far as estimating is concerned.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So this is Ken. I'm wondering if LFD is planning to do any work around forecasting local property taxes in the coming biennium as well.
Well, we will have a new updated property tax estimate in November. The property tax estimate, as far as I'm concerned, actually Julie is on the line and she is the property tax person, so I'll let her give that one a shot.
So we don't have an official estimate right now, I think, at least not for the May 2020 payment. But I did reach out to all 56 county treasurers to ask them if their property tax payments for May came in higher or lower than they expected. And they said, at least for now, they came in similar or greater than last year. So there didn't appear to be a huge impact from the pandemic currently. However, in November and maybe next May, they may see a decrease depending on what happens, but no formal estimate at this time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Any other questions? Well, we appreciate the LFD team joining us this morning. If there's not any other questions, we can move on to some other topics.
Thank you all for doing that. I so appreciate it. And I know that, not that this is volatile, that might be the incorrect word, but if we could have another discussion possibly in 3 months, if it's available, to have you come back and share with our education advocates where we might be with our general fund and our state revenues. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Sam. And thank you, Julia. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next on our agenda, we have the reopening Montana schools guidance, and Cheryl is over here at the end of the table. But we were hoping, as you know, we were hoping to get that out yesterday, just as it's going through the final copy editing process, making sure that everything in it is accurate and has been proofread and fully incorporates what the task force is intended to be in there. It's just our timeline was a little bit too tight. So We will have it out by Thursday. We do have the capacity to make sure we get it out this week and get it out before the 4th of July holiday. But we did have to push that timeline back to Thursday. It is going through the final editing process right now. Are there any questions or comments about that or anything we need to add, Cheryl?
No, I think that's pretty clear is we pushed a pretty aggressive timeline in order to meet the needs of our school districts, and really appreciate all of the help of many of you that are on this call towards that contribution. And as Dylan shared, it's absolutely vital that we have that consistency and clarity for our school districts, as we know that they're carrying a very heavy burden at these times, striving to identify and figure out how they're going to best meet the needs of their students while keeping that foremost around student safety, well-being, community safety, and well-being in the forefront of their decision-making. So it's a new time for our school districts, and we know that the depth of the guidance that is coming will be helpful and useful to our district leaders.
Absolutely. So keep an eye out for that guidance on Thursday. And then like we've said all along, as we get feedback from schools and from other education partners, we can always make updates to that document. And in fact, once we see what the fall semester actually looks like, I'm sure that there will be some updates to that document. So are there any questions or comments about that? All right, next, I think we were just gonna have, I don't know who wants to take it first, Ken, Jay, or Jack, on the ESSER applications. So Ken, maybe if you could talk about the number of, Ken or Jay, the number of applicants, we've approved so far, the amount of funds that we've sent out, and then I do want Jack to talk a little bit about our conversation we had with the Department of Education yesterday.
Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and, so we're going to start. So I'm just going to share my screen, just give you guys a little. Can everybody see that? Okay, so this is basically this kind of high level outline of the $37 million and of the 308 districts that we have, the activity to date. We have the final approved of 181 applications of the districts. Which is about almost $19 million of the total funding. And so as of date, there's about almost 60% of the applications have been submitted and finally approved. And so we do have some that are not started out there. There's 33 of those, and also in process 94. And just as a reminder, the initial deadline of June 30th was extended out to July 30th so that the schools had more time to complete the applications. We had a submission deadline of the 26th of June, or sorry, the 24th of June, so we could make payments out on the 26th. And so we had 45 of the districts actually submit a cash request, which equated to about 1.4 million. So just shy of 4% of the total funds available was distributed out. So, and that's all I have. If somebody has questions.
Yeah, there's a question. Can we share a list of the districts who haven't started applying yet, so that maybe these organizations on the phone can reach out to them?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay.
Good.
Are there any other questions for Jay before we turn it over to Jack? I hope Jack's on the line. I put him on the spot just late yesterday and asked if he could be on here.
There he is. Yep, he's there.
I'm on the line.
Good job,
Thanks,
Jack.
Okay, thanks, Dylan and Superintendent Artson. So I think everybody is well aware of what happened last week when the Department of Education released their interim final rule on the CARES Act in relation to ESSER funding. That came out on June 25th, and I think it caught a lot of us off guard. So we have spent some time here at the office kind of analyzing that interim final rule, what it's going to mean for Montana, and then we had a conversation yesterday with the Department of Education to try to get some specifics on exactly what the language means. Hopefully later today, we will have some guidance posted on that. I'm working on that right now. just so everybody knows, the interim final rule actually takes the guidance that the department came out on how to spend those funds in relation to equitable share for private schools and how the proportional share is determined. And it goes from guidance to now this interim final rule, which actually became effective immediately. So this is basically taking guidance, which doesn't have the force of law, and turns it into the force of law. So this is what we'll have to be working with. And just kind of in a nutshell, what it does is it leaves two options for districts in regard to the proportional share funding. The first option is the way that we've already done it in the application, that the proportional share will be determined on the amount of funds and then the total number of enrolled students between the public and the non-public schools. This option gives the greatest flexibility to districts as they can use the funds in any school for any student, teacher, and family. So that basically the funds can be used district-wide. The second option allows the district to only use the ESSER funding for students in its Title I schools. And then there's a couple of calculation pieces which will be in our guidance packet that I got to get completed before I go in too much into detail. But on option 2, if the district chooses to only use their ESSER funding in for Title I schools and redoes their proportional share calculation, it will limit the district's flexibility. So if a district had a non-Title I school, then ESSER funds could not be used in that school. If the school ran a targeted assistance program where there are specific students and specific teachers assigned to Title I roles or Title I services, then funds could only be used towards those teachers, students, and parents. So that's where we are right now. Like I said, hopefully we'll have this guidance posted later on today. That will give a little bit more information on how this interim final rule will affect the proportional share funding for private schools.
Thank you, Jack. Are there any questions or comments on that topic? All right. Ken, at a high level, is there anything that we missed on the ESSER discussions?
Sorry, I was a little challenged unmuting there. From a high level, what I would say is that in the question of which schools have not started their application and that kind of stuff, I have heard of a few schools who are not going to apply for the money. And I haven't personally talked to those people yet. It's kind of come through some county superintendents, but I will take that on to start working on the list where it hasn't started yet, to reach out to those districts and determine, are they going to apply? And then if there are those who don't want the money, at least make sure that I hear that from the superintendent themselves.
Thanks, Ken. And it sounds like we're going to get that list together. So that will be helpful to make sure we reach out to everyone. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we have. Yeah, everyone saw that Espinoza came out this morning. So we're still unpacking that information. It was a pretty lengthy ruling. I've read through the first 25 pages or so of the majority opinion, but any comments on that or questions or other business?
Great.
All right, Superintendent.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone being on. We will have another one of these. Let's see, it's going to happen on the 7th of July. And in between our time today and the time that we meet again on the 7th, it is the 4th of July. And so everyone, please be safe, travel safely across our state or wherever you might be. And I do know that we're all here putting our students first. This is so unprecedented. As we might be vacationing and everything, we know that our schools and our school leaders are all looking to see what our school doors are going to open like in the fall. So with that, everyone stay well and happy 4th of July to all.